From Hollywood, it's People Now with Bill Touch. Now, here's Bill.
Psychedelic guru Timothy Leary. I wonder if he likes that title. We'll find out in a minute. And he's going to be talking about his new book called Flashbacks. The beautiful Randy Brooks is with us, our resident Hollywood columnist Malcolm Boyce, comedian Tom Dreesen, and Charles Chaplin talks about the Playboy Jazz Festival that's upcoming. One of the great landmarks of the 1960s was the day in 1963 when a certain Harvard psychology professor was fired for experimenting with a certain obscure Swiss mind chemical called LSD, which we heard a lot about in the years that followed. We also heard a lot about the gentleman who experimented, Timothy Leary. He became a media figure, an exile with the Weathermen, a candidate for governor of California, a prison inmate, and a lot more. You can find out all about him in the autobiography we just showed you called Flashbacks. It's kind of a psychedelic cover of some sorts here. I'm trying to watch out we don't get any glare on it. Dr. Leary is here to talk about the book. So nice to see you. I've been saving these for the day I met you.
Well, there you go.
My actual 1960s love beads that I've had since those days.
They're not worry beads, huh?
No, love beads.
Okay.
What's the difference between love beads and worry
Love them
beads?
up, Bill. They're now official.
What do you think when you look back at those days, the 60s and stuff, and all that craziness you were involved in?
Well, it was a part of great changes in American culture. I think they were mainly for the good. We all developed and grew through it, and I think today the generation that went through that tumultuous decade is going to take over very soon. It's the baby boom generation. 76 million people born between the years 46 and 64. You're just about ready to take charge of the country, and I can't wait until you do it.
How do you look at it? Do you look now you're taking a back seat and just watching it all happen?
Well, like everyone else, I'm involved in communication. We're moving from the industrial era to the era of information and intelligence, and I've just had a movie with Gordon Liddy. We have a debate that we carry on.
Yeah, how did that whole thing start with you and Gordon Liddy?
Well, it started when, as I explained in Flashbacks, he came into my bedroom one Saturday night at midnight with 12 stormtroopers, and that was our first meeting. And we've continued to debate issues ever since then.
Why was he in your bedroom with 12 storms? I can't even say it. Stormtroopers.
No, terrible word, isn't it? He was a very ambitious assistant DA in Poughkeepsie, New York at the time. And after bungling that raid, he was promoted, according to the Peter Principle, to the Nixon White House, where he performed even greater bungled raids. And
but you two continued to debate.
Yeah, I think that's the American tradition. I like the man, but I despise everything he stands for. He's a really totally authoritarian personality, male, macho, militaristic, tough. And what he tries to do is what really the Reagan administration tries to do, instill fear and paranoia in us. And it's my job and duty and obligation to go around and to kind of show where he's off the track.
Are you at all going to be in the political circles?
No, I'm going to be a writer. I've got tremendous reviews from Flashback so far prematurely, and I'm going to continue writing autobiographies. It's a great thing to do. I encourage everyone to write an autobiography. You really learn a lot about yourself, and also historians are now realizing and teaching that the best way to find out what happened in any period is not through the history books, but through the personal experiences.
People that actually went through it.
Yeah, and in Flashbacks, I talk about Ginsberg, Jack Kerouac, Aldous Huxley, Cary Grant, Henry Luce, Marilyn Monroe, the Kennedys.
These are people you were involved with over the years?
Yeah, these are people that were involved in the drug culture or the
Jack Kerouac. There was an amazing movie out about him that
Heartbeat.
Yeah. Which, if you didn't know his story, it was interesting because he was into I guess just grass basically.
Well, he ended up alcoholic. I have a chapter in Flashbacks about an experiment, a drug experiment, in which Jack was one of our subjects. Allen Ginsberg and Peter Orlovsky and I went to New York, and on one day we turned on Robert Lowell, who's a Pulitzer Prize-winning poet, Jack Kerouac, and a prominent publisher named Fleischman, and so we
You people didn't mind when you experimented with LSD back in 1963 when people really didn't know what it was, and still don't know what it is, I guess. You know, were you scared at all about doing it?
Well, we had plenty of respect, but our attitude towards drugs is that you must treat them with caution, with prudence, with intelligence, with know-how, and then it's like any other technology, like a car or an airplane.
You still experiment at all with drugs?
Yes, I do. My wife and I, you know, we're Americans. This is not Czechoslovakia, and my wife and I and our friends believe that in the privacy of our own home, we can alter our mood or change our brain synapses and expand our consciousness as long as we don't hurt anyone else. I went through, as I describe it in flashbacks, I was conceived on the day that alcohol prohibition started in this country, January 19th, 1920.
Okay.
And my first 10 years, I experienced, you know, everyone in my family was using an illegal drug, which was called alcohol. So I've been through this now, 62 years of drug fads, and the illegal drugs today will be legalized, I'm sure, very soon.
There also is one part of your book where you talked about even in 1940, wasn't it? You got in some trouble when you were a cadet in school?
At West Point, yeah. I was a cadet for almost 2 years.
And even back then, they were busting you for something, but that was alcohol.
Yeah. One of my public relations problems, Bill, is that, and it took me a long time to figure this out, I blame it all on being Irish. I belong to that Celtic Gaelic tradition of storytelling and of thumbing your nose at authority, and the wild goose tradition of poetry and mystic flights of fancy, and I think that
Give it a shot. Go for it.
Pardon?
Go for it.
Yeah, as I wrote flashbacks, I began to, and I wrote about my grandfather and my father and studied my roots, and being Irish is half the story for me.
Now, flashbacks, the name of the book, is something that people associate with LSD, that you get flashbacks. Do you ever get flashbacks?
Well, of course, what is flashback? It's simply an intense reliving of another experience so that you can remember the first time you made love, or maybe some frightening experience in your life. To the extent that you can flash back to an experience of that sort, it means that you can reproduce it in your brain without the drug or without the event, and it means that you're getting more control of your brain. So as I explain in the book, the future of psychology is learning how to use the brain, the great biocomputer, so that you can flash back anytime you want to.
How do you look at the 1970s?
Well, I spent 6 of those years either in prison or in exile, and but a lot of us did. It was actually the decade of the prisoner, wasn't it? With the Nixon administration and Liddy and Haldeman and Ehrlichman. I thought it was a rather dull decade myself.
Yeah. What about the 80s? What do you see in the 80s?
I think the 80s are going to explode. I think that one thing the Reagan administration is doing is polarizing things again, and the apathy of the 70s. You know what Reagan did just last week? He's using our taxpayers' money to spray paraquat on domestically grown marijuana, which will be smoked by our young people. Now, the war is now being brought home. I think actions like that are going to activate and irritate and energize freedom-loving people, and I think the next few years are going to be really tumultuous and exciting and evolutionary.
We're going to take a break and come back and talk with Dr. Timothy Leary some more about flashbacks. Stay with us.